Ladies and gentlemen, we have the third quarter financial report 2025-2026 CBC Radio Canada. Here we have a second deck that we're not supposed to show you, but we have it, so here it is. CBC, here for Canada, 2025-2030 strategy. Structural decline of linear TV viewing in Canada and the shift toward online video platforms, produced by Corporate Research, April of 2024. Confidential, do not distribute. Whoops. We have breaking, but probably not shocking news. CBC often paints a rosy picture of its own success, but we've obtained internal confidential documents that reveal what the broadcaster privately admits about its future. Their own research shows traditional television audiences shrinking, advertising collapsing, and the broadcast model dying a slow death. The most striking part is that while CBC clearly sees the decline, these documents offer no clear plan to stop it. Let's take a look. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Exhibit 1, Structural Decline of Linear TV Viewing in Canada and the Shift Toward Online Video Platforms, produced by Corporate Research, April of 2024. Confidential, do not distribute. Whoops. So, this is essentially the executive summary that they want you to look at. So, some of the things that they are actually admitting here that they won't admit in committee or in front of anybody in Parliament. Linear TV viewing in Canada has declined by 41% over the past decade. Now, linear TV, that is referring to just you're sitting on your couch and you're watching Channel 4 or Channel 27 or whatever channel you typically watch. That's what linear TV means. Canadians now watch 17 hours of linear TV each week, down from 28 hours from 2010 to 2011. And we've actually talked on this show that because I used to work for a broadcaster, we knew that way back in 2008 and 2010. Linear TV viewing is declining across all age cohorts, but more rapidly among Anglophones. Seasonal comparisons show that COVID did not reverse or slow the structural decline. However, in fall 2022, the rate of decline slowed. Light TV viewers are younger and have a higher household income, are less likely to have a paid TV subscription, are more likely to have one or more SVOD, and that's subscribed video on demand subscriptions. That's your Netflix, Prime, and Paramount Plus and Disney Plus and all that stuff. Heavy TV viewers, not surprisingly, are older and have a lower household income, are more likely to have a paid TV subscription, are less likely to have one or multiple SVOD subscriptions. Canadians are shifting to online platforms for video consumption and leaving linear TV. Less than half of the overall time spent watching video content by Canadians is on linear TV, 44%. Close to 8 out of 10 Canadians now have at least one subscription video on demand service. Netflix continues to dominate the SVOD market, while Amazon Prime has seen tremendous growth over the past 3 years. The proportion of Canadians who have 3 or more SVOD subscriptions has grown exponentially compared to pre-COVID rates. Advertising video on demand services like YouTube have shown growth since 2017-2018, despite some softening in 2022 and 2023. This is what they anticipate to happen in the future. As the population ages and online platforms become mainstream, we can expect linear TV to continue to decline as a share of total viewing. This will likely be observed when medium TV viewers start embracing online TV services and digital video content. So far, the French linear TV market has seen less impact, but erosion has begun, in particular among teens. This points to an accelerated decline in the near future. In young and early adult demos, the shift towards digital is so significant that these demos may be gone from linear TV entirely in the near future, and demos meaning demographics. Now, the kind of disturbing part in what they're saying here but it's reading between the lines, is they're saying their old viewers that are in their late 70s and late 80s and 90s and in that upper cohort, they don't really do much. They watch TV, they watch CBC. That's what they do. And when they start dying off, their audience starts dying off because all of the newcomers they're seeing, and this is what they've just admitted, they're not watching. And this scares the crap out of them. Let's keep going because we have a lot to go through. Linear TV has declined by 41% over the last decade. So you can see the demographics here, folks. 65 plus. That's the gray line at the top. So Canadians over 65, they're the ones that are keeping the CBC afloat. You can see the percentage of the other demographics, and it has been just a steady decline. And it looks like by 2030, there might not be much left of the younger demographics, folks. And you can see all of these numbers are red. There is zero growth in the last 10 years. And these numbers are staggering. Negative 73%, negative 69%, negative 67%. Even their core demographic is down by 13%. While linear TV viewing spiked in the early days of the COVID lockdown, this did not turn back the structural decline. This is the crazy part, folks, because you can see the dates and you can see the seasons, and it didn't really help. Like, nobody had anything else to do in COVID. So what did everybody do? Well, they didn't watch CBC. They went online. That's what they were doing. So if CBC couldn't have even seen a spike across the board when it came to COVID, what chance do you have? COVID combined with a lower content offering, meaning there's less content that they offered on CBC, accelerated the structural decline in fall 2020. In fall 2021, in both language markets, the decline slowed. Since fall 2022, linear TV viewing is declining more among Anglophones compared to Francophones, where it is stable. And this is mainly because there's not really alternative services in French for the Francophones. And this is one of the reasons why Pierre Poilievre, he said, I'm probably not going to touch Radio Canada because there's not really a competing service anywhere in Canada for Francophones to actually watch or listen to, which makes sense. If there is no other option and it's a service that's needed, sure, I'm okay with the government funding an agency to do that. But this is what's happening when you look at what's happening in the English space. So it is just declining and declining. So you can see on the chart on the right. So fall 2018 versus fall 2017, there was a 3% increase, and then 5%, 8%, 4%, 9%, 12% decline year over year over year. And you're seeing the same thing in the average minute audience change. Same thing. So the acceleration of decline is increasing. Penetration of paid TV services is in decline, and we project that decline to continue slowly. Yeah, no kidding. Because nobody wants to pay for cable anymore. We have Bell, and they gave us 5 TV. We've used it 0. And I mean 0. We have never used it. I don't even know what's on it because I don't care. Why? Because I have to wait to watch what comes on TV. Whereas I can go on the internet and watch whenever I need to, whenever I need to. Never mind the fact that we don't have any time to watch anything because we're working on Northern Perspective all the time. But this is the state that we're in that the providers are literally giving away their package, but they're still technically saying, well, you know, they're paying for it. Are we really? Canadians report that less than half of their overall time spent watching video content is on linear TV. They are moving to online video platforms. SVOD and other online platforms now each account for a quarter or more of the overall time spent watching video content. Well, and that makes sense, right? Because so other online video, that's going to be your social media, right? That's going to be your TikTok, it's going to be your Rumble, it's going to be your YouTube and everything else. And The other quarter of that is going to be on, your Netflix, your Paramount Plus, and everything like that. And that's just increasing. Look at the dramatic increase. A total of 12 points in terms of other online video. That's the power of YouTube and independent media and everything else, folks. So it's staggering to see these numbers, because this is over the entire audience in Canada. 18 to 34-year-olds are even more likely to have moved towards watching content via online sources. Look at that. 17% in fall 2019 was on regular TV. That went up by 3% to 20% in the fall of 2023. But still, you have 80% of their time is just, they don't care. They don't care about TV. They don't care about CBC. They don't care about any of their content. And this is probably one of the major reasons that the Conservatives are actually able to secure more and more younger viewers, because they're not watching this garbage and propaganda that is on CBC, CTV, and Global News. Global's at least been a little bit more willing to call the government out, which I applaud them for doing. I hope they keep doing it. But at this point, you've lost the trust. And I don't think you're going to get back. It's like a scorned lover. When somebody cheats on you, how do you ever get that trust back? I don't think you do. Because how do you get it back when no one's watching? So even if you did, nobody is watching you. Subscriptions to most popular SVOD services are declining. Netflix is still the most popular SVOD. So Netflix owned this category, obviously, for a long, long time. And some of the other ones have increased, but they're all declining because everyone is starting to put in these silly little rules, right? This is where these companies didn't seem to learn from the cable companies. This is why they lost all their competition to online. Netflix, they have their base package, but now it's going to include ads. And by the way, you can't share it with anybody, even though you used to before. And the other platforms are doing the same thing. Prime is doing this stupid model where they say, okay, well, you pay for Prime and you're going to get Prime Video, but if you want these shows, you have to pay for this. And if you have these shows, you have to pay for this. Well, that's going back to the cable model, and everybody hated the cable model. So what's happening is you're seeing now a normalization where people bought all these initial subscriptions, and then they're saying, you know what? I don't want the cable model. I don't like having to go to 50 different providers, and I'm essentially paying the same amount I am for what my cable bill used to be. I'm not going to do that. So they start canceling their subscriptions. Way to go, Chrystia Freeland. Cancel that Disney Plus. Advertising video on demand platforms like YouTube are widely consumed by Canadians. No kidding. So 84% of Canadians have been watching YouTube within the past month when this was actually prepared. So with 86% of English folks doing that and 79% of French. And this is only going to go up. Viewing on AVOD platforms like YouTube have shown significant growth over time. Softening in the past year is likely related to viewing shifts to connected TVs, which is not captured by ComScore. So what this essentially is saying is that the YouTube space and the online video platform space, they have seen massive, massive growth. And you're seeing some decline over the last year or so, but that's because they're actually watching it on smart TVs now, right? Smart TVs really started to hit the shelves in 2020, 2021, and people are using those. And the problem is some of the metrics that they're capturing here, they actually don't capture the views from the televisions. Now, what is CBC going to do about it? Well, here we have a second deck that we're not supposed to show you, but we have it. So here it is. CBC, here for Canada, 2025-2030 strategy. And off the bat, this is where they put it in black and white. Current strategic context. So this is the realities they have to deal with. Use of CBC Radio Canada services among key demographics is low or declining, especially among youth and newcomers. So the immigrant population that is coming in and our youth, they are not tuning in to CBC, which means they probably never will. Trust in media and institutions generally is declining. I wonder why that's happening, CBC. The French language is increasingly vulnerable in North America. Pressures on commercial revenues are increasing, coupled with rising costs of production. Local news and reporting are declining in communities. Here's the next set of challenges that they deal with. Media consumption is shifting to digital platforms, with younger audiences and newcomers less engaged with domestic linear platforms and content. Let me translate that. Nobody is watching CBC anymore. They're all going to YouTube, and they're all going to X and Rumble and TikTok and other forms of media. And that is pushing them out of the market because of the competition. Foreign streaming platforms continue to disrupt the domestic media industry and marginalize Canadian services. They're talking like Crave and Disney Plus and all of this. Well, boo-hoo. You guys were so behind the eight ball, and all of the IT folks kept telling you for about 10 years that you need to change something, but you just told them all, this is a fad, it's going to be going away. Technological innovations are making digital creation more cost effective. Yes, it is. You don't need to be spending $1.4 billion on this. But it's a mystery that CTV does spend $1.4 billion on this. Consumers are using digital services with more interactivity and immersive experiences, from gaming to social media. Artificial intelligence is shaping the connections Canadians make and content they discover and encounter. Generative AI presents opportunities for increased efficiency while raising the risks of misinformation and disinformation. Technology helps make content more accessible to Canadians on all platforms. Multi-platform media operations stretch limited resources. So what are they going to do about all this, folks? Well, apparently they're going to do this. Expanded content on third-party platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, especially designed to reach new audience segments, children, youth, newcomers. It's not going to happen for you. Improve services across CBC Radio Canada platforms, an improved user experience on CBC Radio Canada platforms, more local video output in regions, partnerships to expand free, ad-supported streaming television, digital product and platform environments, use of AI, and to increase public. So they're going to be spending a lot of money to try to put their content in front of other people online. I don't think this is going to happen for them. I really, really don't. Tackling misinformation and disinformation with new digital tools shared with other media. Expanded disinformation programs, including materials for schools and libraries. Expansion of FAST channel offerings. More entertainment channels and additional distribution of existing channels. So the problem that they have is they are just going to continue operating in the legacy way they have for the last 60 years. That's what I'm reading from this. Well, we just distribute more. Notice, none of this says we need to make better quality content. Ta-da! This is the amazing part. There's no reason for them to lie to themselves. The problem is you have people in here that don't understand the new media landscape. And they're not putting in solutions to actually deal with that. What they're saying, well, we need to get on TikTok. We need to get on, these are our platforms. Well, that's great. But if your content sucks, it's not going to happen. We know that. Every person who puts videos on YouTube or X or TikTok or any of these other platforms, they know that. Your content has to be good, number one. And if your content is good, the views follow. If your content is not good, then the views don't come. That's as simple as that. People are going to watch what they want to watch. And if you produce bad content, then you're going to have poor views. But CBC seems to think, well, we just have to increase our reach. Priority 3, bringing people together. Current context. Social and political polarization are on the rise, as are threats to national sovereignty. This is where maybe they are lying to each other, or they actually believe this and it's pretty crazy that they think there's actually threats to our national sovereignty. But social and political polarization are on the rise. And CBC has to understand that they play a massive, massive role in making that happen. Which leads to trust in media and institutions is declining. Again, see point number 1, CBC. Disinformation and misinformation is spreading and being weaponized by AI. I don't disagree with that. The media sector continues to be disrupted by foreign platforms, some of which, okay, so they're basically saying, oh, these foreign platforms are causing us problems. It's not CBC's problem. This is what I get from all this. It's not our problem. We're just victims. Risk of defunding of public institutions in a time of social stress and crisis. Gee, I wonder where that came from. Employee needs and expectations are evolving in a competitive talent market. So people are leaving CBC. Maybe because you have these things called the crying room. Maybe take out the crying room for a start. Put a bullet in there. Remove crying room. How about that? Maybe that'll help you with employee relations. So what are some opportunities to bring people together? Better reflection of regional perspectives. New content to engage children. Cross-cultural programming. Increase investments in independent production in both English and French and Indigenous content. International coverage. Increase news budgets to immediately expand coverage with existing correspondents in anticipation of increased bureaus in the future. So they want to just spend more money and put more bureaus everywhere. Okay, fine. Accessible archives. New initiatives and partnerships to make the content of CBC archives more accessible. Oh, so not only are they not going to make good content, they want to make their bad content more accessible to people. Wider access to nation-building events, providing CBC Radio Canada media pool coverage to industry partners to reduce costs in covering major events. That's what they want to do to fix this on the bringing people together aspect. One of their bullet points was trust is declining in institutions and media. There was nothing there to address that. Unless they're trying to say, well, nation-building events. What does that mean? Sounds like liberal talking points to me. Why would they have something that sounds like liberal talking points? I'll let you folks discuss that in the comments. We have another deck to get to because we have more information to go through. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the third quarter financial report 2025-2026, CBC Radio Canada. Whoops. Now this is near the top. This is fascinating. So it says we rely on data from both internal metric tools and those of third parties to measure our performance. While these data are based on what we believe to be reasonable calculations for the applicable periods of measurement, there are inherent challenges in collecting this information, particularly as the media industry undergoes a digital transformation. For example, Canadians now consume media content on multiple devices from an ever-growing array of content providers. As media consumption habits change, we are, together with audience measurement suppliers, refining methodologies and introducing new measurement technologies to ensure the accuracy and completeness of data gathered. As a result, changes in the way data are collected could result in certain information provided in future periods not being comparable with information disclosed in prior periods. Since some of these data are used to measure our strategic and operational indicators, we may be required to make adjustments to targets and historical results to enhance comparability of the data and follow industry best practices. This is fascinating to me because what this says to me is, well, we're actually going to be changing how we measure things, and that's going to be changing our performance targets. Ding, 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 ding. That's a red light and an alarm. Because it makes me wonder if things are going so badly for CBC that they need to say, well, let's just change our reporting model so that it doesn't look so bad for us. Because we got roasted at committee. Because we didn't really want to share any of that. And it seems like the only information that comes out of CBC are with access to information requests from amazing organizations like the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. So let's take a look at some of these numbers, and they are not pretty, folks. So what we want to look at is this chart here. Now, the bold numbers are from the 2025-2026. That's basically where they are right now in terms of the Q3 metric of where they are. So this is in millions, just so you know. And the not bolded number, that is from the previous year. Okay? So what we can see is they're showing the weekly reach in Q3 of 2024-2025 was 8.8 million people. And this past year was at 6.1 million. That is almost a 30% drop. That's crazy. On CBC News, went from 3.9 million down to 3.1 million. CBC Radio 1 and CBC Music, they actually increased from 6.2 million to 6.9 million, where, you know, there's not a lot of news content. So yeah, why not? And CBC Digital went from 15.9 million, this includes GEM, I imagine, down to 15.3 million. And their market share dropped from 4.7% on CBC TV to 3.6%, from 1.9% to 1.7% on CBC News. And they actually increased their market share on CBC Radio 1, CBC Music by around 1.9%. Those are huge losses in terms of numbers. If less people are watching, that's less ads they're seeing, that's less money that they're getting. Government funding. So their third quarter, which coincides with government year end. Government year end is March 31st. So they're in the third quarter in 2024. They received about $336 million in government funding up to that point. And for the third quarter 2025, a total of $355 million. Now that's not year to date, that's just for the quarter. Year to date is over on the right side there. So in 2024, year to date, December 31st, they received around $1.038 billion by December 31st. And in 2025, December 31st, they were on track to receive $1.059 billion. Revenue. How much revenue is CBC bringing in? Well, it ain't pretty, let me tell you. So they're showing in advertising, they're showing 86 million in 2024, down to 77 million in 2025. Subscriber fees went up by a couple thousand. So I guess that's all right. And other income all goes down. It drops down to the fact that they lost about $600,000 from last year. Not great. And year to date advertising. This is the shocking part. A 30% decline from 269 million down to 189 million. That is shocking, folks. But it aligns with the almost 30% decline in audience. Like, it lines up 1-to-1. That's what you would expect. All the way down to the total of 439 million they were at year to date last year to 365 million in 2025, end of December. 16.7% loss. Bleeding money, folks. This is where they're breaking down, you know, basically what happened. Again, 30% drop. And they say mostly due to softening demand and competition in the market. What competition in the market would you think is contributing to that demand? Probably independent media and the online space. Why do you think CBC and all these other media companies are wanting C11 in, and they wanted C18? Operating expenses. This is where it gets ugly, folks. You'll recall that their revenue at this point in 2024 was only 439 million, folks. So they're not even trying to offset this. They have become so dependent on parliamentary funding, it is not even funny. All the way at the bottom, 1.4 total. So basically what they're saying, folks, is it costs them $8.5 million in 3 quarters to run CBC. That's just management. If you can figure that out, you're a smarter person than I am. In 2025, maybe we should give them some points. It was a 2.7% decrease in operating expenses. Hooray! They didn't spend 1.4 billion. They're down to 1.36. Now, this is what makes me laugh. So this slide shows the total comprehensive income or loss. So what this does is this takes into account all of the revenue, all of the operating expense, all of the capital expense, all their pensions and everything. So in 2024, they had a positive increase year to date of 123 million. And they had a positive increase of 242 million, which is a 97.1% increase. Well, you may be wondering, how the heck could that happen? Right? If they're losing so much money and they're making no money, how is their net position increased by $242 million year to date? Well, you have to go all the way down to the bottom. And it says a gain of 209.9 million was recognized on a year to date basis on remeasurements of defined benefit plans. This was mostly due to a 29 basis point increase in the discount rate, which decreased the defined benefit obligation by 239.8 million, and a gain on plain assets of 33.1 million, resulting from a higher return on plan assets than estimated in our actuarial assumptions. This was partly offset by surplus distribution recognized of 63 million. Interest rates, folks. Interest rates. And it sounds like their pension values changed, and the value of their benefit plans changed, so their assets actually increased in value. They didn't make any money. This wasn't because of revenue. This wasn't because of anything other than the money was sitting in the bank and interest rates changed because the economy went to crap. That's why. So they may sit back and say, "Oh, well, great, we're in the black," but you're not. You're not. Sure, if you shut down everything in CBC right now, and you cashed out all of those plans and paid for everything, sure, you could try to say that that you're in the black, but that's not really how it works. Your revenue and your OPEX are so far apart, you might as well be from Vancouver to Cape Breton Island. That's how far apart they are. And it amazes me that we are paying CEOs of this company between $400,000 and $600,000 a year. And then they're paying themselves bonuses on top of that to essentially manage our public broadcaster into decline. This is what Catherine Tate refused to tell committee while she was there. She tried to dance around it. She tried to obfuscate, and she tried to just go on these tangents and say how proud she is of CBC and all of this stuff. She tried to say that CBC doesn't pay bonuses. They do pay for performance, which is also a bonus if you look it up in the dictionary. And the most disgusting thing is, this is all information that Canadians already assumed. But we pay the bills for this organization. Taxpayers. All of us. As far as I'm concerned, this information belongs to us. We own CBC. They work for us. And you can see that they know the situation. They have no idea what to do about it. But they're admitting it. They're getting crushed by online platforms, by the new media landscape, by new independent media. Because independent media is actually willing to talk about things that they refuse to. And there's very, very few other perspectives in legacy media other than the liberal propaganda that keeps coming out. Even Damien Keurig called it out in a CTV article that they were brave enough to publish. So, I know this has been a long video, but this is a lot of information that we felt you needed to see because, in our opinion, it belongs to all of you. So, the next time somebody tells you that CBC is a growing broadcaster in Canada and every Canadian watches it, you show them this video and you show them this data. Because this data proves exactly what we all knew. That CBC and the legacy media landscape is on its way out.